Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Ron, welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
I'm very happy to be here.
It's great.
I'm very honored.
It's great to have you now. I'm looking forward to diving into your music over the next bit. So you guys released your new double album Mundi on the 15th of September. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's an album we start working on, I think, 18 months ago, maybe 20. I'm not sure about that. And it took quite a while to finish it because we had a lot of material. And we decided to put our music in a more experimental direction. So we added some krautrock elements to it. And also we wanted the music a bit more heavier than our previous records. And I think if you ask me, we did a pretty good job. I'm happy with the album.
You sure did. You sure did. Now, the first thing that's noticeable once you listen is it's darker than your previous work. What kind of led to that decision?
Well, I always, when I speak for myself, I always like when not every album from a band sounds the same. And our second album was kind of the usual follow-up from the first record. And I still love those two previous albums, don't get me wrong. But we thought the third album could use some more balls to it and some more courage in our musical approach. And that's why we decided not to take it not to use the safe road, not the safe way. And that's how we end up like this. So we had some different approaches when it comes to songwriting, not the conventional way of writing songs like bridge, chorus. We decided to mix that all up and also, think outside the box when it comes to musical theory kind of thing, fuck the skills for things like that,
Yeah, I get you. And a double album, it's a big undertaking. Was it kind of a case of you had wrote too many songs, or was it a conscious decision from the start it was going to be a double album?
No, it was not a conscious decision. We started writing, and we had some songs who turned out pretty long. And also we had some shorter songs, but when we put this together, we thought like, hey, when we put this on one record, it's never going to fit. So we had the idea just to split it up, to make two different releases of it. But we thought, let's make it a double. It's a good statement, Our previous albums were pretty short, around 30 minutes. And this one clocks about, I think, 73 or something, maybe 80.
Yeah.
So, we thought it was a statement to do it like this, put it in people's faces. Here you got it. 2 albums. So like that.
And, are you going to take a break now? Because you've put out practically 2 albums as one. Does that mean you guys are going to take a longer break?
Well, first we're going to promote this album the next year. And after that, we'll see what's happened. Maybe we take a break. Maybe we have so much new ideas that we start for a 4th album. I don't know. Who knows?
And when it came to recording then, how did you guys approach it? What did that time look like?
You mean how we record the album?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of material we recorded live in the studio, and then we take the best take, and sometimes you have to repair something, and sometimes I add some guitars or some Rob, our bass player, he's very good at space sounds and psychedelic stuff like that, and we added that stuff to the live track, and then put vocals on it. Yeah, that's how we do it. And there also are some live jams on the album, which just are the way we played it.
I gotcha. Now, something my listeners enjoy hearing about is when it comes to making new music, what's your favorite part? What do you look forward to most? And then the reverse, what do you dread?
Well, for me personally, I like to see it when you have a musical idea and you see that idea is starting to grow. There are some tracks on the album which the basic idea came from my hand, and it was kind of a usual song, with a chorus and a bridge, and a verse, and then we start that hustling around, and then it's very interesting when you see what the end result of a certain song is. And sometimes I think it's pretty difficult to see how a song is developing into something new. But in this process from this album, it was very exciting. And also for me, a wake up call, like, oh, this is also a way to do it, and yeah, it was exciting. This is really cool. Maybe we put some demos online someday. Then you can see how the starting version some songs was, and how it is right now. And that's in a couple of cases it was totally different.
That's something you'll definitely have to do. So, and it's been out for a week, so there's not been much time for people to really get their teeth into it. But what has the initial reaction been?
Well, until now, the reactions are pretty good. We have a couple of reviews now, and they're very positive, and new reviews are coming up. And we had our album presentation last weekend, and yeah, that really was a blast.
Nice.
We sold a lot of records, and people were very enthusiastic about the new material. So we were very happy, because it's always, you never know how people are going to react, especially when you make a record which is so different than your previous records. It can go both ways. Some people like more song-related material. They probably end up with previous records, but the people who are more into experimental and crowd rock, space rock kind of stuff, they might end up with the next record. So yeah, it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it sounds it. Now, you guys formed in 2017. Personally, for you, what has the journey been like?
Well, we that our drummer name is Rob, and the bass player also called Rob. And my name is Ron, so there are the 3 R's from. So I make it easier to say the drummer is Rob M and the bass player is called Zim. Okay, it makes it easier.
Okay.
So the bass player Zim and we met each other a long time ago. I was, I think, 16 years old, and we are from the same city, and we hung out at the same places, and eventually we ended up together in a band. And I think I was 21 or something. I was a band called AP Lady, and that band evolved into Astrosonic, which is a band which lasted from 1999 till 2016. It still exists, but if we're going to do something with that band, I don't know. But Rob and I played together in AP Lady, and that's how I started to know Rob of Zim as a musician.
Mm.
And later on, I met Rob Martin, the singer and drummer from Rex, and he was a big Astrosonic fan. So we meet at Biddy's place. Maybe you know the name Biddy.
Mm.
Somewhere floating around. He's not under us anymore. And on the party at Biddy's house, Rob started a conversation with me, and he actually didn't know that I was an Astrosonic. So he was quite surprised that I was in that band. So he was like, "Are you playing an Astrosonic? Oh, I'm such a great fan." That's the way I met Rob Martin. So, and a couple of years later, we decided to form a band and try some jam sessions together.
Nice.
And Walter from Roadburn, he found out that we did that, and he immediately offered us a spot on Roadburn. So it was quite a challenge to make an album for Roadburn, because we really have to hurry.
I suppose at this stage, so we'll dive into your own musical history to give the listeners a sense of where you come from. Now, it's a bit of a tricky one, but can you remember your earliest musical memory?
Well, my earliest musical memory is my parents. They had a pharmacy shop, but they weren't exactly musical. The only records they had were they getting from clients. So they were like those awful compilation records, all 13 good, with disco tracks on it. Nana Mouskouri and Vicky Leandros, things like that. Also some awful Dutch artists, But on one record was the Osmonds with a track called Crazy Horses. And me and my brother, we really liked that one because that was a rock song. And that was my first encounter with rock music. And when Kiss had a hit on 1979 with I Was Made for Loving You, that was for me, then I was really into rock music, because for my birthday I get the Love Gun record. And from that point, all hell was breaking loose. And for me, Love Gun is still one of my top 5 best rock albums ever. So
yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
And after that, Rainbow came with Rising, because a girl who worked in my parents' shop, she recorded a cassette tape, and Rainbow Rising was on that one, and the first Iron Maiden, and Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies. So that tape was also very important. And still, all those records are very precious to me. And after that came the first Van Halen, and that was like an atom bomb went off in my head. When you hear Running with the Devil for the first time, for me, I didn't know what was happening. I still think that guitar riff is one of the best riffs ever made.
Yeah.
So that's when the journey started, and from that point, I started also to discover more types of music. I also, at that time, listened secretly to disco music, because that was not done for a metalhead. But eventually I ended up with Slayer and Metallica, and Exodus and Nuclear Assault and Metal Church, all those thrash bands from the 80s, which also are very precious to me. Also Entombed, death metal came up. But also disco. I'm a really big Nile Rodgers fan. But also some country music and psychedelic music like the old Pink Floyd. Yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, sounds it. Very eclectic mix there. And, if you had to pick the moment to define what sparked the desire to become a musician, what would you say it is?
When you have the Kiss Alive 2 album and you open that album cover, what do you see? You see a big stage with flames, a rising drum kit, and Ace Frehley is there on the right side of the stage. And I was thinking, I want that. And how old was I? Was 9 years old, I guess. And that was the age that I said to my parents, I want to play guitar. And the first thing they thought was, he's going to play that for 1 month, and then we have to buy a nail so we can nail it to the wall. But my dad never needed that nail, because from that point on, I was playing guitar all the time and trying to write my own songs. And actually, I was 15 when a cousin of mine, he asked me to join his band, and that was a thrash band called Defen. And I was asked when I was 15 years old, and I was barely 16 when I had my first studio experience, which was like, I was so overwhelmed from the whole studio thing, which with a big table, and that's how I forgot to play well. So when you hear a demo, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, the songs, they were pretty decent, but the playing was awful because I was so impressed with what was happening.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
Oh man, that's fairly young though to have a studio experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I was pretty young.
Yeah, yeah. And
I was 16.
Growing up then, the local music scene, what was it like and how has it changed to the way it is today?
Okay, that is an interesting question because I'm from a small town called Os, and I still live there. And we had a very living metal scene back in the days. We had 4 or 5 thrash bands who did it pretty well in the 80s. You had Defen, the band I played in. We got Messina, who also made a pretty good name. We had Endangered Species. We had Armageddon. And probably I forget some bands, but we were friends, but we also were a healthy form of competition, So we had a great time playing with each other, but also we tried to overrule the other bands, in a friendly way, but it was a great time. It was really, for me, I learned so much. I learned so much, how to act on stage, to play on stage. It was really important for me to form myself as a musician.
Yeah, yeah. And how does that time compare to the local music scene today? How has it evolved over time?
Well, I think a big difference with that period and now is that it's more difficult to build a name. Back in the days, when a band was playing in your city, you went to see them.
Yeah.
No matter what it was, you went there. So it was always crowded. Always when we played, there were 200 people were there at least. So people really wanted to see bands. The music scene, live music scene, was really active, and the music scene is still active, but it's not that on every concert a lot of people are showing up, and it's because there are a lot of more bands existing right now than there were back in the days. Because in my city, the band scene was very living, very active, but it was not like that in other cities. So I think also it's quite unique back in the time, back in the days then.
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference, but also you have to, all digital social media kind of stuff. You have Spotify. And back in the days, we were selling cassette tapes. It's really really different.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And from the concerts you've attended then, is there any that you would say have made you?
Well, my first big concert was Metallica and Queensryche in 1988. It was the Justice for All tour. I was a big Metallica fan and a big Queensryche fan. I think the first 4 Queensryche albums, I think they're brilliant. sometimes I have discussions with musicians because they think Queensryche is a bit cheesy. Maybe some of your listeners agree with that, but I love it. So I went there, and Queensryche for me was absolutely brilliant that evening. They were fantastic. And Metallica showed up, and it was a bit disappointing for me because,
Really?
in my opinion, Queensryche completely blew Metallica from the stage.
Right.
I still liked the Metallica concert, but it was like, I mean, their sound was messy. I mean, they played a bit sloppy, in my opinion, and Queensryche was very tight. And it was my first big concert, so it was very impressive to see 30,000 men, big audience. And it was my first time. I was 16.
Yeah.
And in the same year, I saw Slayer on the Side of Heaven tour in a city nearby. And I think there were 4,000 people showing up. So it was a much smaller venue. But that concert was so intense. The energy from the public, energy from the stage, it was one of the most intense concerts I ever saw. It was absolutely amazing. And I think those two are still in the back of my head.
Yeah, I can see why. All right. I have to ask, if you stack them together, which one comes out on top? Slayer or Metallica and Queensryche?
That's a very difficult. I would say Queensryche or maybe Slayer. I think that energy was so amazing, and the band was playing so tight, and they were at their peak. Maybe because I was too young to saw Slayer on the Hell Awaits tour, but they played in 1985 in Eindhoven in the Dynamo. Yeah, I was 13, so I was too young. Maybe they were at their peak back then, but for me, that was the best Slayer concert I ever saw, and I saw them many times after that, maybe 15 times or something. Really a lot.
That is a lot.
But that one was so 4,000 men. Everybody was shouting the lyrics from Sound of Heaven. Everybody, no exception. Yeah. Everybody. And that's quite impressive when you're 16 years old.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, quite possibly the most important question of the whole episode. For your shows, for any listeners that haven't caught them, give them the full experience if you can. Tell us all about them.
And what experience do you mean?
Your shows, the shows you play.
Well, we going at the shows at this moment are more psychedelic, with more jammy parts in it, and we try to take the audience on our journey, and we try to do that with no musical influence takes the overhand, and we try to make a good balance between songs, experimental parts, big heavy fuzz parts, and psychedelic swinging parts where the audience can dance or trip out or anything you want. Everything is allowed except violence. And people can make their own journey together with us. I think that's what we try to accomplish.
Sounds like a good night. Yeah, sounds like a good night. And if you think of all the gigs you've played over your career, is there one that maybe sticks in your mind as the most perfect experience you've had?
Well, there is one gig when it comes to rec show, it's very special. And it was during the COVID time, and everything was restricted, the whole story. And a lot of bands were struggling with this whole Corona COVID, pretty shitty situation. And then there was in Antwerp, in Belgium, they made a an arena made out of wood, and we played there. And we had a stage what was moving around in circles, and it almost seems like that Mad Max movie, Mad Max in the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
And when I walked into the arena, it was looking like that. Oh my God, I'm playing in the Mad Max Thunderdome here. So, and they had a pretty clever solution to this whole COVID, limitations, because they had this kind of, what do you call it? Kind of boxes where 2 persons each could take place. So when we looked around, we saw this arena with 2 persons in every niche. Maybe that's the right word. And then we start playing, and the atmosphere was so great. We had this stage which was turning around and with us on top, and the sound was perfect. It's also when you fold over our album cover, you see that arena on the inside. So the gig was so special that we decided to give it a place on our album cover on the latest album. So I think that one was really a very special.
Yeah.
And we were pretty on steam that evening. So the show was also very, very good, and everything fell into place.
Yeah. When you have a gig like that, how are you not like walking off the stage saying, that was it, we can't possibly get any better, we might as well retire?
Well, we went off stage and we were really like, whoa, this one was really, really great. But for me personally, I realized afterwards, maybe a couple of months later, man, that gig was really special, But I think you always have to try to get over your best gig, I think when a gig is so special, you're always looking for gigs that are even more special, or at least at the same level,
Yeah, true.
So, and sometimes we also played a gig in a very small venue in Nijmegen, and it was on the second Christmas day in Holland, and that one was also very great. There was only 50 people because it was so small, but the connection to the audience was also really great. There was only 50 people there, but everybody was dancing, having a great time. Also, that small places can also very, very exciting and very special.
Yeah, true.
So I think these 2 ones for me are most special for me. Hopefully, with our new album and the new set, with our new material, hopefully we can get some gigs that are going to top those 2.
Exactly. Fingers crossed. And I always say you have to take the good with the bad. So for this one now, you can use any band, any band you've been in for your career. But is there a gig that you've played that is maybe the worst experience you've had, and how did you deal with it?
Well, I think one gig was very bad. And I'm sorry for the people who were there, because there also were people who thought it was really great. But that was a gig with the Devil's Blood. Maybe I was in that band too for 5 years. And it was on a festival in Sweden, and it was called Muscle Rock. And we played there 2 times. And the first time we played there, that was really awful, because we were there for 2 days, and half of the band was drunk. So we went up stage, and fellows were forgetting their parts, and that gig was really a bad one, and especially for the Devil's Blood, because almost every gig of that band was very, very good, except for that one.
Yeah.
That one I have very bad. Strangely enough, after the show, we had some discussions backstage, and we were pretty angry on each other. But 1 hour after that, we still had a good party. So that's a strange thing about that, you know. Then it's all okay. We forgive each other and let's have a good time. But that show was really awful. And also we can remember one show with a band called T-Nailed, and I was in that band from 1995 till 1998. And that's also a gig when we were drunk. And most of the time when the musicians are drunk, nothing good comes from that, because you don't remember your parts. And we also had a sampler on stage, and it was put on the drum riser, so the drummer started playing, and the sampler was fucked up because of the vibrations, and it was one big mess. And that kind of gigs you really want to forget.
Yeah.
I think every musician has experiences like that, I guess, or especially when you play for a long time.
Yeah, I think you have to have experiences like that. It makes you a better musician almost.
Yeah, I agree totally, because from bad gigs also you learn from that, you know, because you can never be on full steam always, you know, and sometimes you have a lesser evening. Yeah, it happens. We're no robots, so and I think when there are musicians under the listeners, I am 100% certain that they can recognize all the things I'm telling right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm absolutely sure about it. And maybe some of them saw one of those gigs. Maybe they were on Muscle Rock. Maybe some listeners were on Muscle Rock. And when they heard the mistakes, I apologize for that. But we had a great party afterwards. So
that's the main thing. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And you know, your shows nowadays with Rags, when it comes to showtime, your pre-show and post-show rituals, how do you psych yourself up? And then afterwards, how do you wind down?
Yeah, that's also a good question. With Rags, we all have our different method to get energized before a concert. For me personally, I always am nervous. I make music for such a long time now, and I'm always nervous before a show. No matter how people are there 4 or 5, I'm always nervous. So I always try to, you know, get a little bit of a quiet spot, you know, sit in the dressing room, not too much noise, you know. Normally when a support acts are friends of mine, I'll watch a couple of songs, maybe 3 or 4, but then I go backstage and get some rest, change clothes, you know, because we have a stage clothing thing. Our drummer, he always do some voicing exercises, and he also tried to get a quiet place, sometimes get some sleep before he gets on stage. And Zim, our bass player, yeah, he socializes a little bit, you know, with the people in the crowd. He's a bit different. And sometimes he looks for a quiet spot. It's with him, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we have our own approach when it comes to that. It also differs from band to band, because we had this blood ritual before we went up on stage.
Yes.
You know, we stand up in a line and we get big blood throwing over our heads, you know, and that's also a kind of ritual to get energized before the show.
Yeah, true.
So And after the show, normally we walk off stage and we give each other hugs, and then we sit in the dressing room and get a beer. That's pretty standard. Yeah, you take a good seat and you get a beer, a cold beer, and then you sit there for, I think, about a half an hour. And then most of the time we go to the merchandise stand to help the guy selling the merch, talk to people. Sometimes people want the merch to be signed, so we do that. And normally we stand there for 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and a half. And most of the time then someone from the venue comes and says, "Hey, you guys have to tear down your equipment and load the van because we want to clear up the stage."
Yeah.
So that's a little bit, the ritual from mostly every concert.
Right.
When you are a
right.
support act, you have to get your stuff as soon from the stage as possible. So most of the time, then we walk off the stage, take a quick grab of beer, and then immediately go back on stage and clear the stage for the headliner.
I see. And when you guys are on tour, playing festivals, gigs like that, what kind of antics do you guys get up to? Any fun or exciting wild stories you can share with us?
Oh, well, I think Rags is pretty decent. Yeah, maybe it's a bit boring, but nothing really pops up in my mind. I have to think about that. Normally, it's more like after the shows, Sometimes we get real drunk and building parties and things like that. But yeah, before shows were pretty professional. We want to put on a good show and yeah, we're all also in a relationship. So when it comes to groupies, we are pretty loyal guys, I guess.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I suppose, how do you guys balance your personal lives with the demands of being in a band?
Well, I think to admit it, it sometimes can be hard because I have a family, and well, yeah, you are away lots of times, and fortunately, I have a wife which really backs me up with that, and I'm really lucky about that. And it counts the same for the other guys. Well, Rob Martin, the drummer, he doesn't have a family, and for our bass player, yeah, it counts the same. It's a bit a different story because he divorced from his wife, but he also has to find a way to combine it with his kids. But yeah, we find a way with that, which helps from people, with friends and family.
I see.
Till now, it works. It works pretty good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll keep working. And the times when you guys aren't playing gigs or on tour, or maybe the time in between albums, how do you engage with your listeners and your followers? How do you keep them interested?
Oh, that's a difficult question because I'm not very good with the social media. But yeah, we try to upload some pictures, some rehearsal, shots. Let people see that we're still there, and maybe some pieces of new material, things like that.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the same approach when it comes to next year and when we are working on new material.
Yeah.
But most of the time, also when an album is out for a while, we still try to play gigs. And of course, there are not as many when your album is fresh on the market. But still, we try to play gigs and to let people see, hey, we're still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that.
And when you think of the future, how would you like the band to evolve? Say, what would it look like in 5 years' time?
Oh, that's also a very difficult question because when we started the band, we had something like, okay, let's make an album. Okay, let's make another one. And now we also made a third album, and we always like, we'll see what's happened next year. And I really think it's very difficult to say where we are about in 5 years. hopefully we make a fourth or fifth album, maybe much more experimental at this one, maybe to explore musical boundaries like we did on this one, and maybe we take this a little bit further. Maybe I think I'm more into that kind of stuff, but yeah, we'll see. But it is not that like we have a big plan like becoming huge or something. We just want to make music that we like, and hopefully our friends like it too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only way to be true to yourself as a musician.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, you know, future plans that are set in stone. What does the rest of the year look like for you guys? Any gigs or anything coming up you want to tell us about?
Yeah, sure. Our next gig is the Into the Void Festival in Leeuwarden. It's a stoner space rock festival, and we're really excited that we are playing there. I'm sorry. Then our next gig is in Belgium. I'm not exactly where, but it's in the German part of Belgium. And there are some upcoming festivals for next year, and we are working on that one. I already heard some names drop, but I can't tell you the names because we are in the negotiation stadium right now. But
gotcha.
our goal is to play as many festivals as possible next year, and do also some club shows, of course, and hopefully in Ireland.
Fingers crossed. Be great.
Should be
to get
great.
you guys over here.
Play
Yeah.
in Dublin or anywhere else.
Yeah.
I only played there once with the Devil's Blood, and
Only
it was
once?
really great. Yeah, it was really great. We went out in Dublin. I think I came home at 8 o'clock in the morning or something.
Sounds like Dublin.
It was really
alright.
cool. Yeah. We went up in a bar and there were guys playing folk songs. But the atmosphere was great. I didn't know any of the folk songs, not one. But the atmosphere was very good, and the people were extremely friendly, and they poured us full with Guinness, and it was really, really fun. Great time.
Yeah, you're long overdue a return visit. So
Yeah. I'm lost the name of the venue though. Maybe it's called The Pint. I'm not sure about that.
The Point.
No. Yeah, could it be?
Yeah, there was it was the biggest venue in Dublin at one stage. The Point Depot it was called. I think it's called
I think it was there.
The Tree Arena it's called now.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was there. Yeah. I'm almost sure.
Yeah, that was a good while ago now.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I'm hopefully we can do as many shows as possible, and we're looking for opportunities to make a tour, maybe as a support act for a band, but we're working on it. Good. And hopefully I can inform you you guys that it's really happened, and let you know.
Yeah, definitely be great to catch one of your shows. We'll dive into the last couple of questions. So there are a couple of odd, fun music questions, but I'm intrigued to see your answer. So
okay, shoot it.
If you could see any musician from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Can I only pick one?
I'll go easy. You can pick a couple. So
okay, well, there are a couple of ones because I really like to see Randy Rhoads with Ozzy. I'd like to see Robert Johnson in concert. So I have to go to the 20s. And Queen.
Right.
With Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
In
the best era.
Yeah.
I think those three, Jimi Hendrix. Maybe Rainbow, Ronnie James Dio time.
Yeah.
Oh, there are lots of them. Oh, really? There are lots of them.
I think you need a
Edward Van Halen.
Or so. Yeah.
With Dave Lee Roth in the 80s.
Oh man.
I only could pick a couple, but I think who wanted to see the most. I think the first three: Robert Johnson, Queen, and Ozzy with Randy.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
This one is a bit odd now. If you had to spend 24 hours locked inside a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Oh, whoa. I think Robert Johnson.
Good choice.
When I hear stories about him, I don't think he's a very nice person, but I'm so intrigued with his playing that, I should be picking him. I played slide guitar with him.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Do you reckon he really did sell his soul at the crossroads?
I'm sorry?
Do you reckon that story about him is true, that he really sold his soul at the crossroads, or do you think
Yeah. Well, it's a great myth. It's a great legend. And I read a lot about it. But I think the true story is that, it's actually funny with him, because when he started playing guitar, he wasn't that good.
No.
Because he always jumped on stage with guys like Sunhouse, and Big Bruce, what's his name? Big Bruce. I forgot. But those blues legends, with from the early 20s for the last century. And he was squeaking on the guitar, and he was annoying those guys. And then he went away for 1 year, and then he came back, and he played them all home.
Yeah.
So I think he practiced 12 hours a day that year.
He'd have to.
And there was this secret guy called Hans Zimmerman, and he was the guy which they think that he gave him lessons.
I didn't know that part now.
That's the rumor.
Oh.
That this guy took him under his wings for 1 year, and then Robert Johnson came back, and then he was the best guitar player of its time.
Yeah.
I think that is the real story. But the people were saying, within 1 year, play that good, you have to sold your soul to the devil, because otherwise it's not possible.
Yeah.
There was also this movie in the 80s called Crossroads. Not with Britney Spears, but with this Karate Kid guy. And Steve Vai is also playing in that movie. It's quite funny to watch that with a guitar battle in the end. It's pretty cool.
Like the Karate Kid with guitars.
Yes. Also, it's a nice documentary on Netflix. The Devil and the Crossroads, I think it's called. And it's about Robert Johnson. So I can recommend that.
Right. And the final one, I've been told this is near impossible to answer now, but we'll give it a go. What song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
I think there's one song in particular, and that would be Stargazer from Rainbow.
Right.
I think for me that is one of the best hard rock songs ever written. And the way Johnny James Dio is singing it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. And I know it's not a very experimental song. It's not very, very spacey or psychedelic, but for me it's very special. And it was like that since I heard it the first time. And I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it came in like a sledgehammer. And it's still very special for me. Every time I hear it. Yeah.
Has to be that one on the soundtrack to your life. So listen.
Yeah, that one definitely. There are more, but that one definitely.
Right. Listen, I've really enjoyed chatting with you now. It's been an absolute blast. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much for your time. And I'm very honored that I could be in your podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concerts that made us.com.